All right, hello everybody. Today's episode is sponsored by everybody's favorite two sponsors of Fourth Spirit, aka the only two, Pugna, that's PVGNA. You can find them at pugna.com or on Twitter, Twitter at Pugna. And you can also follow not Earth Spirit, Unicorn, two completely different things. Unicorn is another one of today's sponsors. They are UNIKRN, and we'll hear more about both these sponsors later on in the episode, so I hope you enjoy it. All right, hello everybody, and welcome to Teach Me Tuesday. I, of course, am your host for this week, Ursinity, and I'm here with also host Beedub. Hello, Beedub.
Hello.
Proud is a bit indisposed as of today, so I'm filling in. You get 2 straight weeks of me, which I'm sure most of you are disappointed with, but we'll all have to find a way to live with it, shall we? So,
yeah.
Well, I feel like, for some reason, I feel very radio hosty compared to podcast hosty today. It's like the way I'm moving around my chair. I have like one hand on a keyboard. It feels very official. Anyway, all right. So let's just kick it off, shall we? I was going to say proud. B, how has your week in Dota been so far? You've just calibrated, haven't you?
Sad.
Yeah?
I'm feeling really sad. Yeah, I calibrated, I think last week I said I was expecting to be somewhere in like low 2K. Although I calibrated at Guardian 5, I think it was, wasn't it? Yes, Guardian 5 at 1,649. So
means you're almost out of it.
Yeah.
Means you have an immediate goal to look forward to. Right, if you're at Guardian 5, it means you'll go to
it's true.
Crusader, it's Crusader and then Archon?
Yes.
Yeah, all right. I'm finally learning the names of these things.
Yeah, it's taking a while. I nearly forgot why I actually calibrated at, even though I've been thinking about it for the last 10 minutes straight. But yeah, they take a little while to get used to the new names.
It's at the very least, I would say, even if you're disappointed in what you calibrate at, I think it's best to be calibrated just to be able to set realistic goals and kind of know where you stand more or less. I was having a conversation with somebody in Discord today that was talking about, God, now I can't even remember what they were talking about, but it boiled down to, it's important whether or not you're losing MMR, whether or not your MMR is where you'd like it to be, or whether it is where it currently is. It's more about, as long as you get better, you will gain MMR. Like, MMR is a byproduct of getting better, right? The goal is to get better, which then equates to MMR, right? The goal is not to gain MMR necessarily, or it shouldn't be, right? The goal should be to get better, and then by getting better, you gain MMR. Because if your goal is just to gain MMR, you won't get that much better. You can just kind of abuse a few things and climb a little bit of MMR. So at the very least, you have a nice, clear set of goals to work towards, right?
Yes.
Well,
kind of. I mean, my goal is to gain MMR.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't really know how to go about that. I mean, I'm glad it's at the top of that, so I can hopefully just kind of bump over into the next one, and I can't go down, right, with my medal. So I'm happy about that, but still lower than.
Yeah, such is life, I suppose.
It happens. At least I know now, though, right?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You were saying,
I
at
think
least
that's
I know.
well worth it. Yeah, it's kind of compared to just always playing unranked and just having no clue. I think I'm fine, especially in normal queue, because again, if you're in that 3K, 4K area, you can kind of tell even if you're in unranked, because it tells you oh, you're playing in high skill, or you're playing in very high, or you're playing in normal. But if you're the vast majority of people sub 3K, it's kind of just you can't approximate anything based off of unranked, because it's just all normal. So yeah, it'll be good. Hopefully, we'll see some climbing through Teach Me Tuesday.
Yes, I hope so.
So, let's just kick off right into it. So, one of the biggest things we've talked about, and we've done some segments on this before, one of the most important things in Dota, which again sounds overly simplistic, but you just want to not die. That's what we're going to be talking about for the vast majority of today's episode, is how to not die while playing Dota 2. And not I shouldn't say while playing Dota 2, I should say in Dota 2. because I can't really help you with not dying while playing Dota 2.
Yeah.
You have to not die in the game of Dota 2. I did not have the necessary medical experience to help you on the other side of things. So, shall we just get into
Yes.
it? I'm trying to. I don't want to like target this too much at B. We were saying when I was trying to think of like what's our show going to be today. I was watching B play a Disruptor game, which is a pretty good game. You had a couple of really nice plays that I liked with Glimpse. You had one that was barely mistimed by like a quarter of a second. I was like, man, that's very disappointing. But,
is that when I think I glimpsed someone out of, I glimpsed them out of, I kind of saved him a little bit, which it was disappointing.
Well, he was going to get out anyway, in my opinion. Now I wish I remembered that exact situation, but it was around like the top tier 3 you guys were defending, and it was one of those things where, again, like if it was a quarter second difference, it would have brought him all the way from escaping back into your base, but instead he just kind of like pivoted one spec to the left. So, such is life. Not a big deal.
Yeah.
You also had that was a weird game. We don't need to go into it. Specific game stuff is not super.
Yeah, it's not
super relevant. So again, like the best way to get better at Dota 2 is just to stop dying. When you're not dead, that means you can do things. And when you're dead, that means you literally can do nothing except buyback, I guess, which we're not going to talk about because that's a different topic. So the subheading for this lesson is something that I think is well established at this point. In my notes, I wrote, AKA, all of Ursi's advice is to just make priority lists, because that's somehow what everything boils down to, is to just make a list and say, all right, this is first, this is second, this is third. And, that's a running theme, I suppose, in my lessons. So, first rule is just to watch the minimap. It sounds like a simple rule, but this was one I specifically got from watching your game, because I was watching your player perspective. And this is a very good way to learn about players and it's a good way to notice what people are messing up, but it's also a really good way to learn from players. So if you watch a pro game, it's very interesting if you're in client, to go and then go into the player perspective of a player and see like, oh, hey, like they're never looking at their hero, basically. Specifically, when I was watching your game, and again, not to pick on you, this is going to seem mean.
No, that's okay.
Is you were...
I need help.
You were at bottom lane and you were farming and pushing a tier 2 with I think you had one other person with you, which was fine. Like you guys were safe. But there was a fight going on in the dire jungle for a solid 20 to 30 seconds and you did not click on it once.
No.
And you were doing literally nothing. Like you were just sitting there. And I was like, a good way to think of it is if you're last hitting creeps in the jungle, you're not going to stop last hitting creeps. Like you gain literally nothing by watching your hero last hit creeps, or not even last hit, but you're just punching around away like a furball or whatever. So you're gaining nothing. Yep. And Dota is, as we say all the time, Dota is a game of information, right? And so you could have been watching that fight up top, and you're playing Disruptor, so it's not like you can TP there, right? It's in the enemy jungle, But it's good to know, oh, hey, what's happening up there? It's good to know, all right, is my team dying? Is my team winning? Maybe if it's a really long fight, I could get all the way over there or, whatever. But again, you may as well be looking at that fight. And
that's true.
If you don't look at that fight, you also are not sure, again, considering that you're split pushing, if you look at that fight and see, oh, all 5 of them are there, that means you can keep split pushing with complete safety. But if you do not look over there and you say all right, if you don't look over there, then you don't know oh, maybe I'm about to get ganked. But if you look over there and say, oh, well, there's Slark and their DK are both fighting, nobody else can engage on me, so I'm safe. So yeah, that applies again less to Disruptor. But if you were a split push Nature's Prophet is probably a better example. You see that five man fight from the enemy team there, you can just push down an entire lane of racks, because they're all occupied. So yeah, let's see. The biggest thing I should say, to boil down and looking at the minimap, because minimap has a lot of different aspects to it. But the most important thing about looking at minimap is basically taking account of who is visible, who is not visible, who was recently visible, and who has been invisible for a long period of time, right? So there's kind of 4 categories there. So if you say they have a Dragon Knight, which in your game they did, if they have a Dragon Knight, you know, all right, he's a pretty slow hero. He has a Shadow Blade, doesn't have a Blink Dagger. If you see him top lane and you know he TP'd up there, even if he's disappeared, but you had already looked like 10 seconds ago, you know he has to be somewhere in that side of the map, right? There's no possible way, unless he had like a bottled haste rune, for him to possibly be at you bottom. That assures you a certain amount of security, right? You know, all right, they're not going to have an instant cast stun. They're not going to be able to push because he's their only pushing hero. You know, they are going to, you know, just fundamentally, they're going to have one less hero on that part of the map if you fight on the other side of the map. So that kind of information is vital to winning. Similarly, if you see DK TP top and you are top, then you know, all right, they may be angling to push this lane. They may be angling to kill me. You know, they may be doing X, Y, or Z. So you gain a lot just from that one simple bit of information that you gained from the minimap, right? And also, like, you don't even have to click away to that. Like, that's just, you know, you see a red dot on the minimap and you say, oh, hey, like, that person TP'd. So similarly, if you do not see anybody on the map for, let's say they have a Slark and you haven't seen him for 45 seconds, it's a safe bet that he's ganking somebody, right? Like, you know, okay, like it's 16 minutes. He probably has his Shadow Blade at this point, and he hasn't been seen for 45 seconds. We're in danger. Or vice versa. If we see him in top lane, we know we're not in danger. So this is the simplest way to live. Honestly, like, bar none, simplest way to live is just look at your minimap and say, all right, I know they're all somewhere else, so bam, easy. And this is helped by stuff like warding, of course, but that makes all the difference in the world. Let's see. Hopefully that's simple. I know this is a piece of advice that I give to people like constantly, because minimap is king. Like, there's nothing more important than the minimap, but I still see people, they just don't click on it. How often do you think you click on the minimap, would you say?
Hardly ever. I'm quite good at looking at it, but I don't often actually click on it and look around.
Huh, that's interesting. Well, as long as you're looking at it, that's half the battle, honestly. Like, as long as you're acknowledging... My problem with just looking at the minimap is that, I mean, me personally, I'm not good at discerning instantly who is where. I can see, like, okay, there's a bunch of dots and whatnot, and, like, maybe it's the enemies, maybe it's my allies, whatever. But, I mean, obviously I see my allies. But if it's the enemies, I'm not necessarily 100% certain who it is and who isn't. Especially, like, you know how some people have that setting on to show portraits on the minimap, I think?
Oh, yeah.
That stuff confuses me, yeah. So I manually click around. Also just because then you could check items. But yeah, looking at it in the first place, that's half the battle.
Yeah, that's definitely something I've been trying to do more, is look at items. It's tough. I am getting better at it, though. I am clicking and looking at what people have. Although I think my issue is I'll kind of look at something and then go, okay, now I know what they've got. And there are some things which obviously are really useful if you see that someone's got like some type of invis or something. But then sometimes I'll look at it and be like, I don't know what that tells me. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes I'll look at the items and I'm kind of like, I can't immediately think what they're building or what they're quite going for. I haven't quite learned that, but that just comes with time, I guess. Yeah,
I was going to say, that does come with time. I think it's one of those situations, right, where there's nothing to lose by clicking on somebody, right? Maybe you see them and like they just have a bunch of random items and, you know, you just don't care. A lot of times I use to energize my team, especially in 5 stacks. I'll just be like, God, what game? Playing a game recently with a bunch of people, and I vividly remember clicking on an enemy. Like, we were losing this game at this point, and I remember clicking on an enemy and just saying, like, all right, there's absolutely no way we can lose because this idiot, like, went, you know, yada, yada, yada on whatever hero. And it was one of those things where, like, I don't know if we won or lost that game, but it's just a good, like, morale thing sometimes. Just like, well, like, this idiot just built, like, a Saint Yasha on Rubik. Like, we've won. Like, this game is over. We've won. It's official. So there is some elements of, even if you just clicked on this hero and you've gained nothing, you know, you could have gained something. So that's kind of one of the vague rewards of clicking on heroes. One of the other things is it's important to notice that if somebody does not have something, but you know they've been farming, then you know they've been saving up like a heck of a lot of money. So they're going to have something big later. Like, I mean, it's most obvious with some heroes like Battle Fury heroes. It's like, oh man, like, you know, it's 14 minutes and all they have are phase boots and like a ring of Basilius and a stout shield. Like, of course they're about to get, you know, a demon edge. But I'd say like a good example is a hero like Spectre, Where Spectre, some people are just going to go phase and then rush a Radiance, maybe like one small item like an urn in between. But some people are going to go fighting builds. So a good example of the things that you gain by clicking on heroes is just you click on that Spectre and you say, all right, they have a one of their Blades of Alacrity. And you say, all right, they're definitely not going Radiance first. And then bam, you're good. Like, you know, they're not going to have Radiance for probably the next 10 minutes at least, which means you guys can press an issue. You also know that she's going to be more effective if she TPs to fights because she's not just saving all her money. So yeah, I'm glad that you're incorporating that into your play, because that's a real game changer.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, like...
I guess, like...
No, go for it.
Sorry, no, finish your point.
Well, it's just like warding, right? Like, sometimes you ward and you gain no information, but you still gain the information that you didn't get, which is a really roundabout way of saying that if you place a ward and you never see anybody, sure, you have never seen anybody by that ward, but you also know that nobody's going to that ward, right? So gaining no information is information in and of itself. So it's kind of a horrible metaphor, comparison, whatever, simile, but, you know, continue with your point that I'm sure is much more cogent.
Well, I was just going to say that I think also the reason why I don't necessarily click on the minimap is I'm worried that I'll miss something or I'll get ganked or something in my... Oh no, but I guess like you don't really have to be there for very long. And I've also got it to set, like if I double tap spacebar, it immediately goes back to my hero. So like, I don't know why I'm, I guess like, I don't know why I'm so scared to do it. I should just do it.
It's probably a bit of comfort, I would say. I think that's a big thing with people. I would like, I think it's just comfortable to see yourself. And also, if you think about all the other video games that people play, you're always centered on yourself, virtually, in most games. Like, maybe the only comparison is like RTS games. Like in StarCraft, you can actually kind of think of it like StarCraft, right? In StarCraft, you're not gaining much if you just sit there and watch your pylons, you know, get made. But you're gaining a lot, and that's why you send like scouting probes and stuff like that. Because you know what's happening for yourself, right? If you're playing a shooter, if it's a third-person shooter, you're always seeing that person, your character you're playing, in your screen. So it's a very natural habit when you're playing Dota, or for us, like non-RTS players, it's a very natural habit to be looking at yourself do things because you are kind of, that's your safe place, so to speak. So I think you just kind of have to break that habit. And it is important, like it's just a game sense thing, which is horrible advice, and I hate saying that, but it really is. Like, you should just know, like, all right, I'm not going to get ganked here. Like, I'm farming underneath a tier 1 and like, or I'm farming in my jungle, which is a better example because tier 1 you have to fight for CS with tower, and that's always hard. If I'm farming my safe lane in the jungle near my safe lane, and I know they're not going to get ganked, I can just do whatever the heck I want. Like, I can go get a drink. Like, you can do literally anything if you have the game sense to know I'm not going to die here. So it is something that comes with time, which is, again, like, it's kind of bad advice, and I don't like saying it like that, but it's something that you'll just figure out as you go along. Yeah, I used to be very uncomfortable. If you watch like pro players, they'll be in the middle of getting last hits, like in lane, and they'll be looking at other lanes, and it's very, because they just know they're so assurance. Like, all right, I know I'm not gonna have to last that creep for at least like 6 seconds. I know I'm not gonna have to worry about getting harassed because the enemy is in Nick's off lane and he's getting zoned by my dazzle. Yada yada yada. Ipso facto, I can just relax and do whatever the heck I want.
Yeah, honestly, it blows my mind just when I look, like watching like a pro player play from their point of view. It completely blows my mind. I don't understand how they look all around the map all the time. Yeah, but I guess that's why they're pros.
Yeah, and it's all just you're using the knowledge that you've already gained to gain more knowledge, if that makes sense, right? So. Like, again, we're getting a little off topic, but this is a very important point. So let's say you're playing Dire mid and you are pushing and you're playing like Medusa, let's say. If you know for sure that nobody's going to be arcing around behind you from either the angles, because let's say you have wards, or let's say everybody's dead except for one hero, then there's no point in having your camera on your hero and behind you, right? Because you know nobody's possibly ever going to come up behind you. So there's literally no point to be looking behind you. So that means you can position your camera all the way ahead of you and be seeing that much more of the enemy area. And that means that when they do come, they have to come from ahead of you. So you are becoming even more prepared from a forward assault by knowing that there's no way they can assault you from behind, which means that you are yeah, it enables you to be more relaxed from the back and be more prepared from the forward, if that very roundabout comparison makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, someday I'll make another camera control guide. I made one, and I had to use like PowerPoint for it because I have no control. I have no understanding of video editing. So I like photoshopped a bunch of slides. It's still a very productive video, honestly. If you want to go to our YouTube channel, it's there. It has like, surprisingly, it has like a couple thousand views, which I was like, oh man, I don't know how this happened. But yeah, that's camera control is very important, and that's kind of a whole nother topic. That's a little harder to talk about on a podcast, but yeah. All right.
Without any visuals.
So let's see. Let's see. All right. So my second rule for how not to die is taking account of whether you can TP escape from enemies or not. This is something.
Oh yeah.
I want to say I didn't start really paying attention to this until a year ago, maybe like a year and a half ago. But ever since then, it's really revolutionized my ability to play Dota 2 well and not die, because we all kind of panic and just run, right? Or I should say most of us. If you're getting ganked, your natural instinct to say, all right, a Night Stalker just jumped on me and a Slark jumped on me and I'm playing Centaur. I need to run. Like maybe I stun and then I run. And maybe they still kill you if you run away. But you could just TP, because Night Stalker initiated with Void. He's not going to have that for 8 seconds. And Slark has no stuns, so you just TP and you're fine. And if you're in the offlane, one thing you'll see offlaners do is they will, like, let's say you're playing Radiant offlane, they try to kill you with a Silencer and a Night Stalker and a Slark, let's say, and you're playing Tide. They would kill you if you didn't TP. But if you have that TP, you can literally just TP back to your tier 2, tier 1 tower, salve up, or shrine, let's say, depending on what time it is, do whatever. Just use tangos even. They could just show back up to lane, like literally maybe 5 seconds later. And, you're back in the game. And they've spent all these resources, and all you did was TP, right? It's super simple.
Yeah.
It's something that people just don't do, I think. And
yeah, I have to admit, I hardly ever do it. Like, I feel like only recently I started to think about it a little bit more. It was when I feel like I was playing against Bloodseeker.
Yeah, and you just TP.
And obviously then it's kind of hammered into you, like, or it was like the people I was playing with, and also like randomers, they're just like, why don't you TP? And I'm like, oh yeah. So like now whenever I play against a Bloodseeker, I'm like, must always have a TP. But I'm really bad at kind of doing it against other people as well. Like I just don't think about whether they have anything to stop me.
Yeah.
It's kind of just getting into the habit again, breaking the habit of just like running away and panicking and being like, ugh.
Yeah, I find the issue, again, like I've kind of been working on this for a long time, so I feel like I'm pretty good at TPing out now. But initially when I was trying to really work this concept into my play, what I ran into was I would think, oh man, I should have TP'd there like 2 seconds into a gank, and then I just die because I waited too long to do it. And again, coming back to the Ursi always makes list things. In a game, from the get-go, you should make a list and say, all right, if I get ganked by this person, I cannot TP out. If I get ganked by this person, I can TP out. So using the enemy comp from earlier, let's say they have a Slark. Slark has a Shadow Blade. He ganks you. He thinks he's all cool. He thinks he's going to do all this damage, and he's a flashy Slark player. Scum of the Earth. And just kidding, I'm a Slark player. I like that hero. And he thinks he's all cool, trying to gank you in your jungle, and you just TP out because you're an Ogre Magi and you have 1,000 health, and there's no possible way he's going to burst you during that, and he has no stuns. So, bam, he wasted an entire rotation. He probably wasted, 45 seconds, and you spent 50 gold and just circumvented that whole situation. He didn't get your kill, and all he's done is waste time. Whereas, if you're getting ganked by, let's say, a Slark with a Basher, maybe it's not going to work. Again, I would probably just TP because there's a chance he doesn't get a bash. That's always a chance. But
yeah, and I guess if you don't try and TP, you're like for sure dead.
Yeah. Similarly, if you're taking account of the enemy team and saying, all right, the Slark, I know if he ganks me, I will not be able to escape. Night Stalker is a little more complicated of an example, but still a really good one because his stun, I think, has an 8-second cooldown. But whatever the cooldown is, I know that you can TP in between casts. And there's no way he has another second thing to interrupt you with unless he built a Yules or what have you. So one of the best ways to escape a Night Stalker is like, all right, he ganks you at 4 minutes. Again, he thinks he's all cool. He's trying to be flashy. He's a Night Stalker, abuses power spike. Doesn't matter because he starts with a void and then you just TP out. A good Night Stalker though will hit you, and not use void until he has to use it to actually kill you. But so that if you do TP, he can break it. But at the same time, by doing that, he is not going to be able to kill you in a lot of situations. So it's basically you are better off either way. And he's kind of screwed either way, which is why he's more of a roamer rather than a solo kill hero. And again, like going back to make a list, if you, at the onset of a game, to eliminate a lot of the in-moment thought, just say, all right, I know I cannot TP if I get ganked by Shadow Shaman. I know I can TP if I get ganked by Slark. I know I cannot TP if I get ganked by Doom. I know I can TP if I get ganked by Doom, but he uses his Infernal Blade first, etc., right? So that's something very important to take like a mental note of right away and then pay attention to for the rest of the game, because you'll easily find yourself living through like a couple of ganks a game at least in those situations.
Yeah. I feel like I need to like make a list of all the lists that I need to make.
Yeah.
Just like, and have it stuck on the side of my monitor just so I can look through and be like, oh yeah, I need to do that.
I'm very list oriented.
I actually might do
it's
that.
It's good, honestly. Like
just like little prompts, visual prompts I can see just like stuck on the edge of my screen. That could really help.
It's a good way to learn.
Maybe I should do that.
That's why like making notes and putting them on your monitor seems ridiculous, but it is absolutely a good way to learn. Like it is 1,000% a good way to learn because you're always looking at it. It's always in the periphery of your vision. That's why and just notes in general are a good way to learn in my somewhat professional opinion. That's why like if you're learning a new language, they say just put post-it notes on all your things, because even if you're not looking at them actively, you see them in passing. So if you have a note that's on the side of your desk that says, don't die while playing Dota, that just gets reinforced. And if you have a note that says, check your minimap, that's going to incite you to check your minimap. So yeah, I would do that. And again, like I'm a very list-oriented person. Like when I go food shopping, I make a list. I don't just have all this stuff in my head. I need a list. And so Dota, I make lists constantly. And it simplifies my thought into very clear-cut sequences rather than a bunch of mixed-up nonsense. Because Dota is, at the end of the day, a bunch of mixed-up nonsense. So you have to try to like order it in some way. And for some people like myself, it works out if you just make lists and say, all right, I know I can get ganked by these people and TP out. I know I can't get ganked by these people. Or rather, I know I cannot TP out if I get ganked by these set of people. And yeah, it ruins entire ganks and it wastes so much enemy time. Especially, like they could rotate 2 heroes on you, but it just doesn't matter. You just TP out. So yeah. Yeah,
that is so frustrating when that happens. So I definitely want to do that more.
And you can actually expand this way of thinking of TPing out to even if they have let's say you're getting ganked by a Sven. If you have an Orchid, just Orchid him and TP out. He has a stun, sure, but he hasn't used it yet, but it doesn't matter because you just TP out you Orchid him and TP out instantly and there's no way he can stun you. I think they last long enough. Actually, he has all that, like we talked about last week, he has all that status resistance, so maybe the silence doesn't last long enough. Let's say you silence a what's it called? What's that guy's name? A Night Stalker. Then you just TP out. It doesn't matter if he has Void up. You just silence him, or you Yule Scepter him. Some heroes that have really long cast time on their stuns, or if you just don't think they're gonna have the reaction time to do it, just Yules them and like maybe like juke around a corner so you so they lose vision, then just TP. Similarly, another big thing is we all know the Juggernaut TP, right? You just Blade Fury and TP. Same thing. At the beginning of a game, just say, all right, they have a Legion Commander. I know I cannot Blade Fury TP this game. Or, they have nothing to stop this. I can Blade Fury TP out of literally everything. There's no possible way they can interrupt my TP. Like, perfect, golden. You're set. Your game is super easy at that point. Like, that's an amazing Jug game. You can just say, literally any gank that happens, I'm free. If I just have Blade Fury up. Until they have an Abyssal or whatever. But then it's like 40 minutes and, who cares? So yeah, that's kind of my, that's kind of that. I think that's really important. And again, some of these things do sound simplistic, but it is important to keep them in your mind all the same. Yeah. All right.
I mean, a lot of the most important stuff seems to be just so simple, though. It's just there's just lots of it, right? Yeah. So it's just trying to remember absolutely everything.
Yeah, I mean, Dota is, in a lot of ways, a simple game. It just becomes hard because all the simple aspects combine to become difficult. right? Like in a
Yeah.
vacuum, they're all simple. I was going to make a weird like metaphor, but I can't think of a good one. I was going to say math, but math is definitely not simple because, I was going to say like math is theoretically easy if it's like, all right, all I have to do is like add and divide and multiply each individual number, and doing that individually is easy. But when you combine it all and it becomes something much more complicated, then it's hard, right? It's all about breaking things down to its easiest parts, managing those, and then gradually incorporating them into one another. Okay, let's see. Our next way to not die is, part of it is just not being alone in the late game. If you're a support in the late game, you should never be alone. If you are alone and you are not within your base, you are doing something wrong and you are going to feed. That is a very like sweeping statement, but I'll stand by it. It's pretty accurate. If it's like 45 minutes and you're alone as a support, you're probably doing something wrong. That's just how it works.
Yeah, you're most likely gonna die, right?
Yeah.
I'm guilty of this. I don't think I'm too bad, but
some people are real bad.
I don't know. Did I do it? Did I do it in the game that you
I
watched?
don't think so. I left. So your game was like an hour long.
Good.
I left at like 45 minutes because my mom and sister insisted on talking about Spotify Premium and what are the advantages and is it worth $10? So I had a very long conversation about the virtues of Spotify Premium versus iTunes. What is it? Apple Music. So yeah, that's why I missed some of your games. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt and say, no, you were never alone and you did perfectly.
I didn't do it ever.
Exactly. All right. That's why you're going to climb MMR, because you're never alone ever and you're never going to die. But yeah, this is one of the biggest things that you see people and they're like, oh, and I'm guilty of this too, for sure, is that you say, oh, like I'm so close to my next item. Like all I want to do is like go and fade bolt the wave and get a couple CS. It's like, yeah, well, you do that and then maybe you die. And then maybe your team loses the next team fight because you can't steal black hole. And then you just lost your entire game because you decided to fade bolt creeps. And maybe you didn't even get a last hit. Like maybe it was literally all waste of time. So yeah.
Yeah,
the
true.
first part of this third rule is don't be alone as a support, just in general, but especially in the late game. In the late game, it's even more important because the enemy team will kill you faster and you can do less. In the early game, if you're a support like a Skywrath, if you're alone, maybe you can get a kill or maybe you can escape. But in the late game, that's not going to happen. Just to put it as simply as possible, you're just going to die. That's just how it works. So just don't do it.
Yeah.
The other side of this third rule is to be with your cores, specifically to be behind your cores. So let's continue with that Rubik example that I brought up. So if you are playing a Rubik, you did not choose your 60 damage talent because you're a good player, first of all. So you have 200 extra health. You're relatively tanky. That means you're not going to get bursted. That means you're safe if you stay behind your cores, right? So you have a Troll Warlord and he's sieging a tier 3 tower. You stay so far behind him. Let's say you're super far behind him because you have a blink dagger. You just want to be as careful as possible. And again, using your minimap and using the information you've gained via warding and whatnot. Maybe I need to be close to my teammates, but not super close. Like if you're too far back, sometimes you'll just get killed from behind, like by a Slark or whatever. So you want to be relatively close enough to react if the enemy team engages, but far enough away that if the enemy team engages, you will not get caught in it. So to kind of flesh out that example, the enemy team has an Enigma, like we said earlier. He jumps into black holes. If you are far enough back, that means you steal black hole, then you counter initiate, everything's golden, you win the game. Good job, plus 25. But if you are hitting the tower, you're doing no damage. You're just putting yourself in danger for absolutely no reason, and you're throwing this game because you're trying to hit a tower. This is something that Proud criticized me on so much when we were playing as a coordinated team, because it was like literally the worst thing I did. It was one of my worst habits by far, because I would be like, oh, well, I'm doing some damage. And it's just like a passive action that you don't think about. You just do it. You're like, oh, well, sometimes towers live with like 25 HP, and you want to get that. But you're playing Rubik. That's not your job. Your job is to stay back and to counter initiate or to react to situations. So yeah, don't hit towers if you're a support or if you are an offlaner that has a big team fight ability. Like if you're a Tide Hunter, if you're up in front, unless you have a level 25, 250 damage talent, which let's say you don't because, Tide Hunters don't get to level 25 regularly, there's literally no point to you hitting the tower. All you're doing is putting yourself in danger and eliminating you're hindering your ability to do your job. right? Your job is either to initiate by blink ravaging or to counter initiate by blink ravaging. If you're in the middle of a fight, that means the enemy team can take account of you and say, all right, I know he's right there. We can go on him. Bam, done, easy. We'll kill him. That's it. Like, we can duel him. We can do whatever. And then they can't ravage. And then your team loses a team fight because you no longer have ravage. So you need to basically realize what your job is in a team. And the odds are you're not a tower hitter. Unless you're a safe lane carry or an off laner or like a Jakiro, or excuse me, or like a mid laner or Jakiro, your job is to protect the people that hit towers, not to hit the towers, because you deal basically nothing. You do a inconsequential amount of damage. This is a very common mistake that leads to so many deaths and so many thrown games. Because like
that's very good advice.
It's hard advice.
Because that is something that I do.
It's something that I still do to this day, and it's one of my really bad habits that I constantly am trying to break, but my stupidity gets the best of me. I'll put it that way.
It's just so tempting when it's there and you're like, every little helps.
Like, oh, there's no way they're going to get
this.
me. Like, oh, no, it'll be fine. And then it's not fine. And then you lose.
And then
I'd say like the biggest one that I see both myself do and I see other people do is they're playing Earthshaker and they think, all right, I just hit Enchant Totem. I'm going to hit that tower for like 150 damage. It's going to be great. And then you go and you hit the tower and you deal your paltry 150 damage or whatever. And then the enemy team engages on you and you cannot counter engage as you normally would. And then your team loses a team fight because their Earthshaker decided that getting 100 damage on a tower was more important than winning a team fight. And that is never the right answer. Unless it's like, I hate giving excuses because it kind of gratifies some of the people like myself that do this. Because the excuse would be, oh, well, playing Earthshaker, I killed that tower, and now we can take shrines. And sure, we lost a team fight, but we still killed a couple of them, and now we can kill shrines, and we got a tier 3. And that way of thinking is very dangerous because technically that is accurate, but in reality, you just threw away 6k net worth because, your Shadow Fiend that was beyond godlike died and your troll died, and, the game is over now because you've lost your lead. So yeah, don't make excuses when you make bad plays, which I do all the time. I really need to work on that. It's something I've been working on for I don't know how long. I've been playing Dota for probably like 8 years. I've been working on it for 8 years, or however long I've been playing Dota.
Oh, really?
Is I just make bad calls and I make excuses for them. And it's a very human habit to be in, but it's a very bad habit to be in.
Yeah. I guess like with that particular example, if you are that kind of initiator hero, you can just stay back, get your like blink ult, whatever it is that you're doing, and then
hit the tower anyway.
If you win the team, this is the thing. If you win the team fight, right, then you win, and then you're free to hit it as much as you like because they're all dead. So
yep, it is like it's one of those things where your impulse gets the best of you. Like mentally, you shouldn't be doing this, but impulsively, you're like, man, I really want to hit that tower.
Yeah,
or like, I really want to get that like last creep hit when you're CSing. And you're like, all right, I know I'm gonna get ganked, but and again, this is something that I do. It's like, oh man, I know I'm gonna get ganked if I stay here for too long, but I really want that last creep hit. Like that's gonna be able to get me like my demon edge if I get the side shop or I get the secret shop. But then of course you just die and then you lose 600 gold and it's like, yeah, now you don't have your demon edge and you're dead for another minute and like the enemy team gets money. Like all the worst case scenarios happen because you just want a little bit extra gold.
Yeah,
so, yeah,
it is the most frustrating thing.
Yeah, and
because you know it's the wrong decision, and then it happens, and you're like, I knew it.
Yeah,
but you didn't do anything about it, but you knew it.
Yeah, I say that's definitely one of my flaws as a player that Proud does not have. That Proud's very good at is I know a call is the wrong decision, and I make it anyway, or I allow my teammates to do it. Whereas Proud does not fall victim to that as much, and that's something that that's an ability I wish I had, but I decidedly do not. And that's one of the reasons I'm not a team captain, which will be one of our questions later. But I can't captain because I think in the retrospect, and I do not argue so much. Like all of us have lost probably hundreds of games, depending on how much Dota you've played. We've probably all lost games because our team makes a bad call that we know was a bad call, but we don't say anything. And then you just lose and you say, in retrospect, you're like, oh man, we really shouldn't have gone for that Roche. It's like, yeah, well, you didn't say it before, so your team Roche and then they lost. And, that's just as much your fault as anybody else's because you did not contest the call. I don't
Yeah.
contest calls, whereas Proud will be like, hey, that's a stupid opinion or a stupid idea. And then everybody will be like, oh, okay, yeah, that you're right. Like, we should not Roche right now against an Enigma and an Earthshaker. But whereas I would be like, that's a bad call, but I'd say that off mic and then we'd all die. And I'd be like, ha, you idiots, that was a bad call. I'm right. And then I lose my MMR. So, yeah. Let's see. Next way not to die. I mean, there's some other things from the third part that I jotted down. Should I go into them? I think the last bit of this third section that I'll go into, which has kind of become the third rule is an umbrella, whereas the first two are somewhat simplistic. I wrote down realizing enemy threats and playing around them properly. Example, it would be not grouping up against team fight is the proper call, right? So if they have an Enigma, you don't group up. But if they have a Slark and they have a pick-off comp, then you do group up because you know, safety in numbers. So it's, again, kind of making a list from the beginning of the game and saying, all right, their team's 1 is good at pickoff. Their teammates 2 is good at pickoff. Their teammates their team's 3 is good at pickoffs, and their 4 and their 5 are both, you know, they just do whatever. But if they don't have team fight, you say, all right, let's group up because they can't pick us off if we're all in like a phalanx, but they can absolutely team fight us if we're grouped up. If they have an Enigma or if they have an Earthshaker or whatever. So again, like right from the draft screen, you analyze and you say, all right, I know I can do this. I know I can play as a group because they don't have team fight. I know I cannot play as a group because they have team fight. I know I need to split push because they have no possible catch, et cetera, right? So you just need to, from the get-go, say, all right, these are the threats from this opponent. This is how I beat them, and that's how we're going to do it.
Yeah. And that was definitely something that the game that you watched that we were kind of suffering from is everyone was kind of split up. I'm not sure whether you kind of, or how much you were watching, but I'm pretty sure like quite a few of us many times were like, let's stay together. Let's not be off in random places. And then, yeah, people would just die. And it was...
Yeah, let's see.
I'm just looking back over that game.
I was gonna say,
and
I don't follow you on Dota Buff because I follow like Proud and I follow a bunch of pro players, so I see all their games. I don't click on them usually, but I see them at the ready. Let's see. Okay, so your game, since we've talked about it a bit, I'll just go into the team comps quickly. Yep, I pulled it up.
okay,
cool. You were playing Disruptor. You had a off lane Night Stalker. You had a roaming Pudge, a mid lane Sniper, and a safe lane Troll. So Sniper Troll is a solid duo. And again, like when we talk about win conditions, your guys' win condition is you just push and you don't get team fought against. Like essentially you want to set up like a protective shield for the Sniper, and then you just want to hit towers. And that's it. Ideally, you do that after a Roche because you have a really good Roche lineup because you have all the vision advantage from Night Stalker. So let's say it hits 28 minutes, and then it'll be nighttime. You'll Roche. You have a Solar Crest at that point because your Night Stalker got a Solar Crest at 16, and your your Troll had SNY and Phase and an Aki at 20 by 28. And then your Sniper also had some damage. So you say, all right, it's 28 minutes, it's nighttime, let's Roche. You Roche, then you push down a bunch of towers, and then you start high grounding because you have the guaranteed safety of an Aegis, and you have the hard physical damage pushing power of Troll with Sniper.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where we kind of lost because we couldn't really push high ground effectively. I think we did take mid tower and Rex.
Yeah, you did get mid Rex.
But we all died doing it, and then we tried to push top and died, and bottom and died, and we just couldn't get it together. And then late game AM just was indestructible, kind of. I mean, we did kill him a couple of times, but it's just so difficult.
Yeah, he actually had 9 deaths and only 7 kills.
Yeah, so he wasn't. It was just at the end, like he was very easy to deal with earlier on, but
that's the AM problem, right? Also, he ended up building a heart,
true.
Which I disagree with a lot, but. It's a good item for not dying. I'll say that much to its credit, but I kind of think it sucks. And the enemy team was an AM, a Slardar, a Zeus, and Monkey King, and a DK. So their team, in some ways, what they want to do is they want to split push a bunch because your guys' catch is mediocre. All you have for catch is you, and Night Stalker, they can either live through or purge. So actually, I mean, your guys' catch is okay. But like they cannot do that slow siege thing against you guys because you guys have a Pudge, first of all, and you guys have a Sniper. whereas their wave clear is weak, right? Their wave clear is a Zeus who wave clears slowly, and they have a DK whose Dragon Breath will not kill the entire wave. So their end goal is basically to wreak havoc and win a team fight and then just push down your base. Whereas your goal is much more organized. So yeah, and again, like this is exactly how we think, and you have to do this a little faster in a game. But this is about realizing the enemy threats and realizing this is their win condition versus this is our win condition. So my fourth and fifth rule are basically they're basically the same rule. I don't know why I separated them. I'll be honest. Let's see. So this gets into maybe the most important thing I'd say in Dota and getting better at Dota, and a very common hole that I find people running into constantly, both when I do coaching or when I'm just talking to people in Discord, or when I'm talking to people just period in general. My fourth rule that I wrote is you should expect your enemies to be smart. And my fifth rule I wrote is assuming your enemies are bad stifles growth and reinforces your own bad habits. And again, they're basically the same rule, just for some odd reason, an hour ago, I decided to separate them in my notes. But this gets down to, it's not just about not dying, but it does feed into not dying. In Dota, a lot of people make the mistake of assuming their enemies are idiots because their teammates they think are idiots, right? If you're playing, and I would say this is even more common. Part of me wants to say it's even more common at low MMRs because people are like, oh, I'm in the trench and I'm good, but all these idiots they have no clue what they're doing. But that's kind of wrong because you still see this, at 6K, you see people that are like, oh man, like these freaking Divine 5 losers, like they recalibrated too high, whatever. So people are going to complain about this regardless. The flaw you run into, the flaw that I run into specifically, again, using myself as a bad example, and a lot of these rules are based off of the stupid things that I do, is that if you assume that your enemies are bad, you're going to be entirely unprepared when your enemies are good, right? If you assume your enemies are good and they're bad, you're fine. You've lost nothing. All right. Maybe like you could have been more aggressive, but you just didn't execute that because you thought like naturally, if you assume they're doing the right things, then when they actually do the right things, you're going to be safe. But if you're assuming that they're going to be doing the wrong things, when you play against a good player that actually does the right things, you're going to lose every game. And this is one of the big things that I say to people because you're never going to climb out of your MMR if you assume people play like they do at your MMR, if that makes sense, right? If you're at 1500 MMR right now and you've been 1500 MMR for a year, that's in some part, if you climb to 2000, like let's say you're a Spectre player at 1500, Spectre gets really good for one patch, you climb to 2200, and then suddenly Spectre gets nerfed. If you're assuming that your enemies and your teammates are going to be playing like fools, then you are going to lose games because people are going to surprise you and they're going to be playing better than they were at 1500 MMR. So you need to adjust these things, and you need to just assume they're going to be doing the right thing. And if they're doing if they're doing the wrong thing, that's a pleasant surprise and you win a game. Like, I played against a PA in an in-house that I won't name because that's rude to do to people. She went for a Radiance. And at that point, this is actually the example I used earlier. Like I just said to my team, like, there's literally no way we can lose this game because their PA went Radiance. And it actually was somewhat effective and was pretty annoying because I was playing TA and it just ate through all my refraction charges.
Oh, yeah.
But it was still terrible. Like that was just an objectively bad decision to make by that player. And if I assume that every PA that I play against after that game is going to do dumb things, then when they do the right thing and build an Abyssal early, and I don't have a Lincoln's yet because I assumed they were going to do something absurd, then I'm just going to lose games. Like you got to assume that your enemies are going to be doing the right thing, even if they don't. Again, kind of like we were talking about with, God, I can't remember what specifically it was, but if you do the right thing and you assume the enemy team is going to do the right thing, you are prepared. You're basically over-prepared for the bad situation. Whereas if you assume that they're going to be doing bad things, then you are under-prepared for the good situation. And it's always better to be over-prepared. That's it.
Yeah, that's true. Because it's kind of like a win-win, right? If you over-prepare and they're like, they are bad, then great. You get an easier win. Yeah.
Yeah. And
it's good advice.
a lot of it comes down to mechanics. I think when I'm in games, the thing I notice most is if I'm playing a game, the enemy team has an AM and he doesn't have Battle Fury at 19 minutes, that's a surprise, right? Because I'm assuming he's a good player and is going to have Battle Fury around 15. Maybe he had a hard lane, maybe 16, 17. Again, I'm over preparing. I'm saying, all right, I'm prepared for him to have a Battle Fury at 16 or 17 minutes. But if he does, like, let's use a really ridiculous example. If he goes like Echo Saber Maelstrom, then I'm golden. Like, I'm prepared for this person to play well, and I have prepared all the countermeasures for them to do the right thing. So if they do the wrong thing, I'm going to beat them even harder. So yeah, that's the gist of it.
Yeah.
And of course, like, you need to know what the right thing is. If you assume that they're going to be doing the right thing, that's kind of like a weird aspect to it. So if you don't know what the right thing is, then you're kind of shafted. I don't have the answer for you. Like, you need to know what the right thing is to do from your opponent to prepare for it. So I don't know, like, expand your hero pool and you'll learn a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that. Let's see. All right. Any questions before we do our ads and then we go into questions? Do you have any questions specifically about not dying? Maybe. I think we covered a lot.
I think that's. I mean, it sounds like you've covered it all.
Yeah, I'm sure I missed something that's important, but you know, not dying is good.
I mean,
however you don't die is good with me.
Yeah, I do have like one thing, which is I don't even know. I called it. So this is a game that I played today, and we had someone go a nature's safe lane. This isn't to do with not dying. This is just something random that I'm curious about. So they wanted to go like safe lane core.
Okay.
With me supporting them as a nature's prophet. Is that a thing?
No.
Okay, cool. Because I called it out and was like, this doesn't seem like a good idea. And they were like, no, it's great. And it was really bad. But I just wondered whether maybe that was a thing and they saw it somewhere and they were like, yeah, this is great. And then they couldn't execute it.
There's probably a good chance they saw it somewhere because, and I think this is actually a really good topic that we should probably talk about as a segment, maybe next week or something. People see things in pro games and they don't understand why pros do it, and then they replicate it, and then they screw up and they lose games repeatedly. So in a pro game, or even in just a high MMR game, it's a really good thing situationally to have a safe lane nature's prophet. So let's give the situation, right? So let's say our team has a mid laner that's pretty greedy. And then we have a core, like a traditional one position that is like a vengeful spirit that can fight early. Then we have a roamer and we have let's say a support silencer. You can then run a safe lane nature's prophet aggro with the vengeful spirit silencer against, let's say they have a really greedy safe lane. And then your roamer is helping both mid lane and maybe supporting the safe lane briefly, maybe getting a kill. And then is also aggroing with you guys in the off lane. That's a situation where you can viably have a nature's prophet off lane. And also, like, to expand on that, let's say the enemy team has no catch at all. So again, going back to, I don't even remember which rule it was. If you know that they do not have any stuns, they do not have any global way to deal with you, maybe nature's prophet's the perfect pick in that game. It's going to absolutely win you. They have no way to deal with your rat. So in that situation, great. Like in that game, you have a good nature's prophet player, you have bulldog, you put him in the safe lane NP, and you sack and you play an aggressive offlane, you're good. A player that is not very good at figuring out the situation that calls for certain things might look at that game and say, oh, wow, they played safe lane nature's prophet carry. That's really good. I'm going to try that. And then that's how that stuff happens, is somebody does a weird thing and they say, oh, well, a higher MMR player did this. That's got to be really good. I should do that. I love nature's prophet. And then they don't understand the situation that called for it, and then they just lose. So I would assume that is what happened in your game. Is some dude saw like Bulldog play Safely Nature's Prophet in a very specific situation that called for it, and he won, and then that player did not realize the situation and then just like fed.
Yeah, I'm a little salty about it.
I would be mad too.
Yeah.
It's you run into
one of my
that.
calibration games.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's rough.
God damn it.
I don't have anything better to say other than it's rough. Like, losing games sucks, especially when they're games that you cannot tell how much they affect your MMR. Yeah.
Yeah.
You get that a lot, I think, with people that are not good at Dota. It's not even an MMR thing. Like, some people are just, they might be good mechanically, individually, but they just are not good at intuiting why certain things are good in certain situations, and then they replicate things outside of that situation. It's like they say, like, oh man, I just lost to Timbersaw mid. I'm going to try that. That was really good. I lost really hard to it. Then they lose because the enemy team counterpicked with like a Skywrath, and then, you know, they just feed. Because they did not realize the only reason that Timbersaw was good is because the enemy team had no magic damage. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, let's do some quick ads before we move on to our final segment. So, our sponsors today were Pugna and Unicorn. Pugna is an online platform and community where high-skilled Dota players, lots of pro players there, and other coaches create educational video guides on how to improve at Dota, learn new heroes, probably they teach you how not to die, and help other folks climb the ranks. This platform is completely ad-free, and each hero guide is divided into little segments. Well, some are not super little, but like, I use the example, I listened to a really good Night Stalker guide the other day, and they had segments that were like 8 minutes long, I think, was one of them, and then one was like a 39-minute review of an entire game. Excuse me. And another one was like a 17-minute guide on itemization. So, you know, I watch them on my lunch break. That's how I consume most of my like in-depth Dota educational guides, whether it's D2 Bowie or whether it's stuff on Pugna. It's like, all right, I have 30 minutes right now. I'm going to listen to 2 parts of this guide. Then tomorrow I'll finish it out. Let's see. There's plenty of content for players of all skill levels. There's stuff from entry level stuff. Like, I'm obviously not a Pugna. I don't make videos for Pugna, but if I did, I would make a video on how not to die, right? Stuff like that. So that's a bit of information that's centered towards newer players and middle tier players, and it's still educational for higher tier players. Whereas if somebody like Jenkins made a offlane guide about how to do some complicated offlane pulls where like you tempo push and then pull, that's a much higher level concept. So you can learn things regardless of your MMR. Yeah, let's see. You can try out Pugna for a full month absolutely free. I believe it's $5 a month after that, but you can use our promo code FOURTH, that's FOURTH. It's not case sensitive. On your sign up, you get a full 30-day trial of the pro subscription, and you can have full access right there, right for you. You can also find them on Twitter at Pugna, that is PVGNA, and you can also go to our website, pugna.com, pvgna.com. Our other sponsor for this week is Unicorn. That is UNIKRN. Unicorn is your premier esports outlet. You can earn tokens to bet just by playing your favorite games. You can also earn coins by playing games that maybe are not your favorite game, like, I don't know, let's say CS:GO or the dreaded League of Legends. You can still earn coins. We won't tell anybody, even if you do. There is completely legal and free to play esports betting, as well as free money bet or real money betting if you're in the UK or Australia. It's not free money. That's not how money works. I'm sorry. Unicorn also offers other great Dota 2 content, including articles, pro analysis, stuff like this from folks like Gorgon and some of the other writers from Unicorn. Unicorn also has Unicorn Connect, which is a service at which you earn Unicorn Gold to, you can use it in raffles, get raffle tickets, and get cosmetic items. That's what you get for playing these games that we're talking about. You can also bet it on pro matches. Fortunately, Proud and I bet on Thursday. We said, what was it? We said that Secret was going to lose to EG, and then Secret surprised everybody, and Ace carried them to victory. So, yeah, maybe don't trust me when I say bets, but be smart yourself and figure out how to win some extra Unicorn Silver and then get cosmetics or whatever you like. You can get more info on Connect at unicorn.com/connect. Remember, that is UNIKRN, or on their regular website, unicorn.com. All right. So let's go to some viewer questions, shall we? All right. Let's see. One of these was very Proud specific. So actually, no, I'll go into one of the more general ones. Bobo sent in a question. He said, I was thinking of a meta counter segment or a question pertaining to specific ability levels. For example, why is PA so dominant at 1K but not so much at 5K? What are 5Ks able to manage, or why are 5Ks able to manage her, etc.? This has been discussed on sometimes on previous episodes, but I really think it helps me as a listener to envision the differences in ability and what I need to focus on to negate those lower MMR meta heroes. So, B, is there a specific hero that you think plagues your pubs that people just have trouble dealing with?
I mean, right now, AM.
Yeah, I think AM is probably the answer most folks would give.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate in that I've seen actually almost no AM in my last 15 games, I want to say. He's banned frequently, but I think I've just kind of lucked out.
Yeah. Actually, I'm pretty sure on the previous, was it last week or maybe the week before? I was like, we were talking about how AM is difficult, and I was like, oh, I hardly ever see AM. And then since then, like, I shouldn't have even said it. I've just been like seeing him in every single game, and it sucks.
Yeah, he goes in waves. So heroes like AM and PA are really good examples, right? Bobo's example is PA, your example is AM. Both these heroes are very good, or they're just good in general, I would say, but they're better in lower MMRs because people are less coordinated. In lower MMRs, the heroes that are going to excel are heroes that require coordination to beat, or heroes that take advantage of enemies being inefficient. So the fundamental difference, I mean, okay, so just to generalize, the fundamental difference between somebody that is at 1K and somebody that is at 5K is that the 5K player has a better mastery of the mechanics of Dota, and the 5K player has a better awareness of how to win games strategically. So a hero like PA, or a hero like AM requires coordination to kill, right? Because he blinks regularly. You usually are going to need to commit a couple heroes, and you need to stifle him early, and then you need to stifle him mid-game. Otherwise, he gets out of control. So in a 5K game, theoretically, again, as a 5K player, I will say this frequently does not happen. People are not as good as you think they are. Theoretically, you say, all right, this AM is free farming their jungle. Let's smoke. Let's kill him. In a 1K game, that's not going to happen. Like maybe, theoretically, the AM is also 1K, so he's going to be farming inefficiently, and maybe he's going to be putting himself in undue danger. He's going to be blinking aggressively, the classic mistake that every blink player makes. And putting himself in danger. But again, at 5K, the reason this hero has a lower win rate is that, or at 4K or at 3K, right, is that these players are going to be punished for doing greedy things. This is why these super greedy heroes tend to be better at mid-tier MMRs, is because people have the mechanical skill to farm well on them, but their opponents do not have the strategic skill or coordination necessary to deal with them. I'd say Spectre is a good example. Spectre is the classic hero that you leave her alone, and then she just gets out of control, and you can't do anything with to her. A player at 1K, while it's true that the enemy team will not be able to deal with you, you are not going to have the mechanical skill to farm efficiently on that Spectre and get to that point. Whereas a person at probably around 3K, it's the perfect convergence of they're going to be mechanically skilled enough, hopefully, to get out of control and farm well on Spectre, and the enemy team is not going to be coordinated enough or strategically intelligent enough. I shouldn't say intelligent. That's a wrong and improper use of the word. Strategically competent enough to counter you appropriately. So that's why certain heroes that kind of fiend off of coordination and long games are better at lower MMRs. I'd say basically any hero that requires specific things to be dealt with. So going to Bobo's example, right? PA is very dominant at 1K because she instant kills people. She requires specific things to be dealt with. She requires MKBs. She requires Bloodthorns. She requires a lot of magic damage in the early game to be dealt with. And in 1K or in 2K or in 3K or in 4K or in 5K, to be fair, people oftentimes, and again, lower is going to be more often and higher is going to be less often, they're just not going to have that stuff. Like this, you're just not going to have a Skywrath counterpick to the PA in lower MMRs. This is not going to happen. Whereas in higher MMRs, maybe you get counterpicked and maybe you lose. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of it, is just knowing how to deal with stuff that requires very specific examples. You can actually use it to your advantage, and you'll win a lot of MMR and get better at Dota, theoretically, by playing these heroes that require specific counters if you are a lower or a mid-tier MMR player. It's a really legitimately strong way to gain MMR. It's one of the reasons why Storm Spirit is so good in pubs. Because Storm Spirit, whether or not he's a good hero, like right now he's a good hero, but in previous patches he's been a pretty weak hero. he's still good in that he creates a problem that needs to be dealt with pretty specific ways, right? You need to have either silences or you need to have single target CC. Same thing with Meepo. And at lower MMRs, if you're a Storm Spirit player, you can really abuse the fact that the enemy team is just not going to have the reaction time. They're not going to have the coordination. They're not going to be able to deal with the problem that you create as readily as they would be able to deal with it at higher MMRs. Obviously, of course, if you're at higher MMR, the Storm Spirit player is better, and then, it goes back and forth. But yeah, if you play these heroes at low MMR that are have very non-linear abilities and very hard to deal with, create very hard to deal with problems, you'll gain MMR. I think that's a very safe thing to say. It mostly applies to cores. A good example of a support that does this, I would say, is, let's see, what's a really good support at lower MMRs compared to higher MMRs? I would say Disruptor is probably a good example of a support that's really good at, Disruptor is good in general, to put a pin in that one. But Disruptor is better at lower and mid-tier MMRs because people are not going to counter it properly. People are not going to say, oh, they have a Disruptor, I'm going to pick Lifesteal, or I'm going to pick Jug. They're going to say, oh, they have a Disruptor, okay, I'll deal with that, whatever. I'm going to pick Terrorblade. But then they never get a Sunder off because they just get ulted. And then they don't build a BKB because they think, oh, I really just want to stat up and get a Scotty.
Yeah.
So Disruptor takes advantage of he does a very specific and unique thing where Glimpse is a very unique mechanic. So you can abuse the fact that the enemy team are lower more, so they're just not going to react to that as well. As a higher more team would say, oh, I just got glimpsed. If I get glimpsed, I'm going to die. I'll just use a BKB charge. It's down to 5 seconds, whatever. Or I'll just rage. I'll just Blade Fury. And bam, your problem solved. So yeah, that's that. Here's with very specific mechanics really excel at lower mores because they need specific things to be dealt with.
Yeah, that's true. You don't see
right,
Disruptor that much at kind of in pro games, really, do you?
We see him as a counterpick, I would say. Whereas in lower more, the lower you go, you can pick heroes that are traditionally counterpicks. You can just pick them whenever you want. This is why, a good example would be Meepo. Meepo is a hero that theoretically is very strong in Haramore because the enemy team does not have stuff to deal with the Meepo. So you fifth pick Meepo and you're like, oh man, we won. Good. But in lower MMR, you can pick it because the enemy team either will not pick the counters or their counters will not be able to execute properly. And then you can just abuse that. So because of the lower average skill level and the lower focus on strategy, you'll be more successful. And in pro games, obviously, you will see a Disruptor being used as a counterpick to a puck, but you'll not see Disruptor just picked first phase. Again, probably a bad example because Disruptor is like a decent first phase pick. But yeah, these counterpick heroes, you could just pick, period, point blank, in lower more, whereas in higher more, you'd want to wait and counterpick them. Kind of like Winter Wyvern used to be. I would just pick her every game, but she was used by good players just as a counterpick. But in lower more, you could just pick her every game and you'd be fine because, you just figure it out.
Actually, I have a question. I wasn't. I'm not sure whether this is kind of like a bigger topic than I think it is, but when you're kind of choosing your heroes, should the support always pick first?
In general,
okay.
Yes. In general, the way that picks work is I would like to have either my 5 or my 4 first picks.
Yeah.
And then I pick my cores after the enemy team has revealed theirs. So one of the big reasons why last pick is so strong, for example, is because the enemy team has to have all their heroes revealed. So I can last pick my core and say, all right, they picked an SF mid. I'm going to play TA and I'm going to wreck that guy. They're super all in on this Shadow Fiend doing well. And my counter pick is just so dominant in lane that this ruins their whole draft and we've won. Or like they pick Meepo and we just pick Sven and we just kill their Meepos every time. Like bam, done, easy. So that element is in pubs very important because if a support gets countered, and also this is kind of why certain heroes are first picks and why some heroes are not. If you pick Rubik and as your first pick, and right, you picked your 5 first, or some people would play it as a 4 now that the meta has kind of changed a little. You pick Rubik first. The enemy team, maybe they pick no heroes that Rubik's particularly good against. Like there's no good steals. They don't have an Enigma. They don't have a Wraith King. They don't have a Tidehunter. But Rubik's still fine. You'll still do your job. You just won't do as many flashy, cool things.
Yeah.
Whereas if you first pick a Shadow Fiend, then the enemy team just goes all in on countering you. So you want to pick your cores after the enemy team has revealed theirs. And then you want to pick your supports that you're not as worried about getting countered, or in some cases just straight up don't get countered early on.
Yeah.
Just as a rule of thumb.
Yeah, because I think like this is something that I've always wondered. Like I've always thought that obviously picking it as support or like position 4 or something, there's like, you pick those first. But I think like I would say pretty much in all of my ranked games, I've been kind of just going in very blind. Like, I mean, obviously we weren't first picking all the time, but quite often I felt like I was just kind of picking something and like no one else had kind of said where they were going. No one else said what they were doing. And I'm just like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to support because I'm not going to pick something that's not a support and then we don't have a support all. And then I just kind of have to pick something that I go, well, maybe I'll play this time without like having any idea what anyone else wants to go and whether that works well with them. And then they just pick random stuff.
Yeah, I would say I run into that problem as well. I don't indicate anything, but if the timer's ticking down, I will just pick a support. Like I'll just pick Rubik.
Okay.
I used to just pick Winter Wyvern, but even though Winter Wyvern's really good right now, I've just been losing on her. Like just period. Like I just somehow have been losing on her despite her being one of my best heroes.
Yeah.
So
that sucks.
Yeah, it is what it is. I was in a big winning streak that we were talking about on the past Thursday episode, and I think I'm hitting my much deserved losing streak, and it's terrifying. I lost 2 games on Saturday, and I can feel it coming. I'm just gonna lose so much MMR. I already know.
Yeah, because you were on a massive winning streak, weren't you? So it's about time.
I climbed to my personal height. Granted, I didn't play ranked for a long time, and I've gotten much better since then. So naturally, I would climb. But I got to my height of I think I hit 52-43. Nice. And then I just lost 2 games, and both were 30-point losses.
Ouch.
And it doesn't feel great. But I didn't lose a star because of the new system, so I'm happy. I still display as Divine 1, and I'm like, oh man, even if I'm only back to Divine 0, they don't know that. They know that I'm Divine 1.
Yeah.
So, which is arbitrary, and I actually this is another topic. I mean, we'll talk about it on Thursday because I don't want to drag it on in this episode, but I kind of am learning not to like the new system. Because it's very hard to approximate your teammates' MMRs and stuff. Especially because now they've made it, I think it was a week ago they introduced a change. But you know how they made it so that not only does it show the highest MMR's badge, it shows everybody's badge?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Because ranked
used
before,
to,
because
again,
I
you
didn't
play
play
ranked.
it, but I'd obviously seen it. Because it just used to show the highest person, didn't it?
Yeah,
Isn't
so
that
it's nice
better,
because
though?
we're like, oh, I'm the highest. And
Oh,
bam.
I see.
But given that, so the matchmaking system works off of MMR, but it displays badges. So even if I am the highest MMR in a game, if all the other players are displaying Divine 1, I don't know that I'm the highest MMR. Maybe all these guys are in 30-game losing streaks, and I'm by far better than them, and I should be playing mid, let's say.
Oh,
We don't know that because all it does is display these badges, and the badges are not necessarily reflective of your MMR if you have lost. So you could be Divine 5 and then throw 300 games and be at 2,800 MMR, let's say. Nobody will know that. You're in that game, but maybe you're the lowest MMR in that game, but just because your stupid badge shows, you just have no way of gauging who's the highest MMR. So it's very confusing, and that has left a bad taste in my mouth. Because I've been in games where just my entire team just displays Divine 1, and I'm like, how am I supposed to parse this situation that I'm in?
Yeah, because
I know theoretically you guys have all at one point been at least, I think it's at least 5160 you get Divine 1 star, but maybe you all lost 30 games, and maybe you're all 4,900.
Yeah,
which is not 30 games, but ignore that.
It's 5180, so. You were pretty much there.
Yeah, it's just bizarre. It's kind of left a bad taste in my mouth my last few games where I've been noticing that as a problem on Saturday when I was losing. Which, of course, I'm just blaming my losses on stupid things and getting mad. But
yeah, of course.
Such is life. All right. Let's see. There's 2 questions, and one Proud is definitely much better at answering, so I'll leave that for him. It's from Kun, and he said, "Oh, this will be a teaser for next week." He asked, "What are your ideal 9 slots on a carry like Juggernaut?" I don't want to answer that question because I know I'll be wrong. because I am not good at late game itemization, whereas that's Proud's special expertise. So Proud will answer that next week. I'm going to answer a Trogdor question. Trogdor asked, he said, I was wondering if you had any insight into developing as a team. I regularly play with an amateur squad, and it's been a blast. Shout out to the boys on Dire Straits, and it's helped a ton. Any insight to building upon success as a team? Good team practices we could engage in. He also had a secondary note, which I will also leave for Proud. So that'll be another teaser for next week. So, let's see. Developing as a team. B, have you ever played on a team before? Like, even just a 5-stack that plays semi-seriously, like, together? Like,
I would say, my regular kind of 5-stack group of friends, I would say there's about 3 of us, or 3 or 4 of us who kind of really like to kind of go in with a plan, and we kind of try hard a bit. Like, we will like see someone picking something and we're like, oh, well, this is a good counter for this and stuff like that. And I did play on a team, but I did get kicked out of it. Not that sounds really bad, but it's just like I couldn't make the practices. So it was just like a casual kind of fun thing. So I didn't end up doing that. But yeah, so I guess like my kind of regular 5-stack, we try hard a bit, or we try to try hard.
That's a good way of putting it. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, like you guys aren't going into tournaments just for pubs, but it is important to play with the 5-stack. Do you guys do anything in particular that you think helps you guys as a group that plays together regularly? Like, do you have like assigned positions? Do you guys talk after games or anything like that? Because I know what my answer to this question is, but I'm interested to see what yours is.
We definitely talk after games. Like, if we win,
that's the right answer.
We don't, I guess, really, apart from
okay.
If we win, we're like, oh, did you see that? Did you see that? It's more like, excited kind of chatter. Whereas if we lose, we're very much like, oh, why did we lose? We overanalyze everything. And it's, like I said, we try to try hard, right? And so like, I would say, like, I bet if I recorded it and got you and Proud to listen to it, you'd probably be like, everything you were saying, all of it was wrong. But but I don't know. I think some of them have some pretty decent insights. I guess also the different thing is like we all kind of know little different bits, and so I would say
you
like
piece everything together.
Yeah. So I guess like
the quilt of Dota knowledge.
Yeah, I would say like we have an okay win rate. I wonder whether I can you find out in like an actual stack like what your win
you can
rate
look at your
is
individual win rate with people.
Okay.
But you cannot look at like a full 5-stack win rate. Let's see, man. I have some people. This is not fun information, but I want to give it anyway. let me see. I have. Oh, is this old? Oh no, it's last 3 months. I want all time. Please, Dota Buff, give me this information. Yeah, so like I have a guy that I've 828 matches played with only 50.24% win rate.
Okay.
And that's because we don't talk after games. And I would say I'm glad you gave the right answer to this question that I was kind of leading you on to. The right answer is talking after games. Talking after games is more important than anything else when it comes to being on a team together. Both for personal growth and for playing and for team growth. Like if you, whether a win or a loss, if you play a game and you win, after that win, unless it's immediately obvious, like unless you drow stratted the enemy, you say, all right, why did we win that game? What did we do well, and what could have been improved? And what should we take away from this game? Should we say, oh, our forward position support, he played really well and he rotated mid constantly because mid had a hard matchup, and that salvaged mid. And then we still did fine in the safe lane, and off lane was fine too. So we ended up equaling out 2 lanes and winning 1 lane. And that's how we won, because we made an early advantage. Similarly, and that's much better than just saying, oh, yay, we won. All right, let's requeue, right? Because you learn nothing if you just ignore your wins.
Yeah.
Right? And it's funny you mentioned this in your comment about your 5-stack, because I think it's a very common habit to be in, is that you kind of drag on about losses and you analyze, oh, why did we lose? And then you just don't think about wins. You think, oh, yeah, we played well and we won.
Yeah.
Because you assume that winning should be the natural state, I think.
Yeah, that's so true.
So similarly, it's good to, if you lose the game, you say, all right, why did we lose? And again, the exception is if it's immediately apparent, like Proud and I, when we've played on teams together, sometimes you have a game that's like, matchmaking is really bad at high levels for party MMR. And we'd have games or we'd be in tournaments and it's like, yeah, we lost because the enemy team had 4 8Ks. Like, there's nothing to learn about this game. Like, we lost because they're thousands of MMR better than us, and that's how it works. Yeah. Like, no point in agonizing over this game. Like, they just beat us in every lane because they're so much better. Barring that very specific problem, you want to say, all right, why did we lose this game? We say, all right, our safe laner could not farm because they ran an aggressive duo lane. Then you say, all right, how do we prevent that if that happens next game? Well, instead of our roamer being mid lane, we need our roamer to be in safe lane. And then we have 3 heroes and they have 2 heroes and we just overpower them early. And then we set the tempo and then we salvage our lane. Everything's good. They've committed 2 heroes and got nothing out of it. Bam, done. Lane 1, success. So having these post-game conversations, you have the clarity of being out of the game. Whereas if you're having conversations within a game, you're very distracted and you do not have the full perspective of the game. So you will not learn as much and you will not grow as much. And also everybody's opinionated in the game because nobody wants to admit that they're doing things that are wrong. Like Pratt and I played a game and it was a low MMR game because we had our friends Migs and his team, the team Lit. They were in a tournament. They needed a couple stand-ins. So we stood in and I last picked Storm Spirit mid against and the enemy team had a silencer, and I didn't think the silencer was going to be mid, so I was like, all right, like this is fine, like I could just counterplay the silencer, I'll just get like a BKB eventually. But then the silencer is mid and that's like an unplayable matchup and I just lost. I still had decent farm, but I could not succeed given like I was probably 1,000 MMR ahead of this guy, but I couldn't abuse that because I was playing in such an absolutely miserable matchup. There was just nothing to gain from it.
Yeah.
And in the game, I was arguing with Proud saying like, it was bad, but if I had rotations, I would have won it and we would have been fine. But in retrospect, I definitely should have, it was just a bad matchup. Like I just should not have picked Storm Spirit. I just wanted to play Storm, so I picked Storm. And it was bad. So it's good to talk after games and talk at length and say, all right. And also I did still have this argument after the game. But it's important to know after the game and realize like, all right, this is what went wrong. And if you are in a good 5 stack, like with friends or that you should be friends with people you play with for a long time. But if you're playing with people, you should be able to have that element of civility to be all right, like you just played bad this game. And you don't say it like that, but it is important to realize like, yeah, I just was dumb. Like I just should not have picked Storm Spirit into silencer. Even if it was a support silencer, I should not have ignored the possibility of it being mid and me getting dumpstered. And realizing your faults. I think you just need to be honest with each other when you're on a team. And if you cannot be honest with each other, then something needs to change because you're not going to get better as a team if you are not able to be honest with one another and say who played really well and who played really poorly. Like that's just the reality of the situation. Yeah. Like it's not necessarily fun. It's not fun to be told that you are bad at like something, but the only way you get better at things is if you are told that you're bad at it.
Actually,
right? Like
yeah, like so in my 5 stack we each have a hero that we're like not allowed to play when playing with each other. So like my brother, he went through a period of wanting to play Storm Spirit, and we just kept like losing a lot. Actually, he's gotten way better, so I think we might lift that ban now. But
that's dangerous.
Yeah, for a while he would be like, oh, I'm going to play Storm Spirit, and we're like, okay, and then we'd just like lose every game. And then I can't remember what my one was that I was banned, but I was banned from playing something. I can't remember. It was some like, I actually think it was just Monkey King with the Battle Fury. They completely banned it because my Battle Fury timings were so late. They were like, you're just not allowed to do it. Which, to be honest, was completely honest and completely fair.
Yeah, I definitely should be banned from playing some heroes, but I have not. I mean, I don't know. I don't play a lot of the heroes that I'm bad at, and I just kind of continue to be bad at them. And then I pop them out every once in a while, and I realize that I'm bad at it, and then it's just one game that's lost, and then I move on. But there's no real hero I've ever committed a significant amount of games into that I've just been bad at objectively. Because As much as like I'm hard on other people in Dota, I'm much harder on myself, and I definitely realized like I was playing Storm Spirit to continue that example. I played him like 3 games in a row, and I felt okay, like I felt pretty decent, and that was fine. But I'm a terrible Storm Spirit. Like I'm just not a Storm Spirit player. I have this with Puck actually. Puck's the best example. Every like 3 months I play Puck, and I'm like, oh man, I'm gonna learn how to play Puck. I have like $20 worth of cosmetics of him, and I have gems too, because I was like, at one point I was all excited to play Puck. I'm just bad at Puck,
no.
like just point blank. Like I'm just bad at Puck, and that's just a reality that I've come to accept. But every once in a while, I'm like, you know what? Puck is a good pick here. Like it's a good pick here. We have a Drow safe lane, and we have an off lane Tide, and we can just 5-man down towers, and I'm gonna win my mid matchup because it's a quap, and everything's gonna be good. And then I lose my mid matchup, and then I have a terrible timing, and then everything's just ruined, and then we lose. And it's like, all right, I'm not going to play this hero for the next 3 months.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and it's important to get back to the initial topic rather than us just being bad at things. The initial question is, if you want to get better as a team, that is the first and most important piece of advice I'd give, is talk after games, both wins and losses, and be honest with each other. And sometimes that's hard, but it's for the better, especially if it's like an actual team that like you're playing amateur tournaments and stuff with. You all should be looking to get better. And if somebody is, I guess this is kind of branching my second piece of advice. Even if somebody's good, you don't have to play with them, which is kind of mean advice. But sometimes it's just right to kick people. Like sometimes people just don't mesh.
Yeah.
Like if I'm on a team and one guy is clearly a problem, maybe he's the best player on the team, but the 4 of us are having fun and this guy is just a jerk, and maybe we win games with him, but it's not worth it, right? Like you're not doing this for money. You're not a pro team, and even pro teams do this. Like freaking what's his name? PPD kicked Owie. He's like, yeah, I don't like him. Like he talks too much in games. Like, and obviously he said it in much nicer terms than that, kind of, but that's just, you know, you can't play games with somebody for hours. At the very least, you're playing them with them for like, let's say 3 hours a week. You just don't play with people you don't like. And you know, some people are very likable, but they just don't mesh with your team. And Pratt and I both have been on teams like that, where, like, I mean, I've been kicked from a team, but I have left teams, and I've intentionally been left out of teams because I'm just not good at playing on a team in some aspects.
Yeah.
And also, like, I'm not like, I'm serious about Dota, but I'm not serious about being on like a team, although I'd like to be. And that's just like a reality of the situation, right? Like, just because Proud and I are not on a team together does not mean we're not friends. That just means we both realize that like we don't mesh well as a team, which is probably a bad example because we generally mesh pretty well as a team. But some people, you know, that's just the reality of the situation. And I think it's very important to kind of nip that in the bud rather than playing games for hours and hours together while disliking somebody.
Yeah.
And then you get like weird tribalist, like 4 people every day after practice, they just complain like, oh man, I really hate John. Like he's so bad at Storm Spirit. And then it's like, well, you know, kick him. Like that's just how things work. Like if you're playing on a team, don't like don't leave yourself in a bad situation for longer than it needs to be. Like this is what you do for fun. And even if you're trying to get better at Dota, like it's still your hobby.
Yeah.
So be coherent, be realistic. Yeah. And also those people usually know it. Like if that person is noticing that every time they leave, the 4 of you still play games, you know,
yeah, it's not a good sign.
Like yeah. And like, it sucks to be that guy and it's not fun to kick people, but sometimes that's what's necessary. Like some people just don't mesh with groups, and that applies to everything. Like if you're doing like group work for like, God, I'm just going to sound like such a terrible person at the end of this episode. Like I did for the first class I ever took, the first master's class I ever took for my education degree, I had to make a school, and we had to like design a school and decide on like a mission statement and a curriculum and like what style of school, etc. And we had this guy on our team, and we had this guy in our group that was like, I think it was like 4 or 5 of us. And he was just awful. Like he just did nothing, and his focus was on he was like a private school kid, and he was very into our team. Our school has to have outfits from like the school uniforms, because we all agreed the school uniforms are better. It's like our school, the school uniforms have to be from Vineyard Vines. I think that's what it was. It's some like expensive preppy brand.
Okay.
And I just told him, I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Like, this is not productive. You need to be productive. This is a master's class. We are getting graded on this. You cannot just like not do work and focus on the aesthetic of our school uniforms. Like that's not how like pulling your weight works. And then he was good after that. Like, and he was productive because you have that conversation with people. And we didn't kick him out of the group, obviously. But the same thing happens, like you can extrapolate that to Dota quite easily. Like people generally want to work together. And if you have problems with somebody on a team, maybe you don't kick them. Maybe you just say, hey, dude, like you keep trying to play Storm Spirit and every game we lose because you play Storm Spirit and you're just not good at it and you need to accept that. And like maybe in specific situations, it's the pick and then we'll pick it for you. But we can't just go into every game picking you Storm Spirit, even if you're against the silencer. Like that's just not, it's not gelling with the team. And most of the time, that person will say, yeah, sure, okay, done. So yeah, just be honest with people. And sometimes honesty comes off as mean. And sometimes you got to kick people. And that's just how it works.
I was going to say, do you not think you can be kind of honest, but in a way where you're a little bit more diplomatic about it? Or do you think like straight up honesty is the way to go?
No, I think ideally you should be diplomatic, but some people, they make excuses at that point. I think like I do this probably, is that if you need to know what that person's personality is like and deal with them accordingly.
Yeah, that's true.
So if that person is the type to just make excuses that they're like, oh, well, you know, I would have won that matchup if I just had more rotations. It's like, well, you put yourself in the situation where you needed rotations. So that's still your own fault at a base level. And so if somebody's the type to just make excuses and dodge, then that comes to the point where you just need to be brutally honest and just say like, dude, you're just bad at Storm Spirit. Like maybe watch some Pugna guides and you'll get better. And then we'll revisit the topic. But until then, like this is just not working. Whereas maybe somebody that is a bit more nuanced will realize like you can be nicer with them and be like, hey, maybe we're not going to pick Storm. Maybe we're going to pick whatever. Like, I don't think last game was super good. So let's try other things. And that's much more polite, but it still gets to the point of, hey, don't play Storm Spirit. So yeah, you just need to act accordingly. And different captains and different teams will do this in different ways. Like if you're a friendly 5-stack, you probably don't have a like rigid captain role. Whereas if you're in a more serious team, sometimes you do have a captain role. It's just like, yeah, this guy is the captain and he makes the calls and that's how it is. So yeah, it's about knowing your surroundings and knowing your setting and knowing like what different individuals respond to well. So yeah, that's the gist of it. Obviously, ideally, everybody should be nice all the time, but sometimes, you know, you just gotta be honest.
Yeah.
Being on a team is hard, but it will kickstart your Dota growth. That's for sure. Like I can 100%, and Proud would definitely say the same thing. 100%, I become a better player more quickly while I'm playing with the team, and that's just how it is. And it's part of it's because you specify within a role rather than just playing everything. But it will accelerate your growth, especially if you're having those conversations after games. Like that will, you're like combining, God, what's that thing they do with computers? This is where I need Proud. He's my crutch for these things. It's a computer, you know, when they like, I'm going to get so many DMs about what this word is. You know how like the Air Force, you don't know about the United States Air Force. The United States Air Force, they used to just have like thousands of PS2s that were all linked together to compute processes.
I've heard about this
instead
actually.
of having computers. Yeah. Oh, okay, perfect. I just assumed, I was like, why would I bring up like US
No,
military
I've actually
stuff?
heard about that.
Yeah, so they just had thousands or hundreds or whatever of PS2s. Instead of investing in like a $2 million computer, they just had the computing power of all these combined PS2s. So you as 5 people can amount to a much smarter and more productive person, or a Dota hive mind, if you just focus together and say, all right, if the 5 of us watch this game, we're going to notice so much, and it's going to be roughly equivalent to somebody way better than us watching this game individually, because they would still miss things. Like I was coaching somebody, we were watching a replay. It was an 80-minute replay, And it was really productive, and we learned a lot, or he learned a lot. But I could not focus on everybody. Like, we were just talking about one hero, and then occasionally we talk about other things. But if the 5 of you are all watching that same game, then you can all focus on little different things, and you can kind of hive mind your way into success. Even if all your conclusions are not necessarily 100% right, you're still being more productive. And it's very important to think together. This is also this will be my last topic, or my last point on this question, is, in my opinion, you should never have a ringer on a team. It is non-productive, and it stymies your ability to grow as a full team. I think every team, if you're a bunch of 1K players, that's great. That's perfect. Like, that's good. But if you are 4 1K players and a 2.5K player, and that 2.5K player is suddenly lording it over you guys and saying, oh, well, actually, that's wrong. You should have done this and this and that. If they're not right, you're all the worse for it. But if you are 5 1K players having a conversation, if one guy's wrong, there's no, like, nobody's lording it over the other one. Like, oh, man, well, I'm better than you. It's like, well, you're not better than us because we're all the same MMR. Like, all the good, productive teams I've been on have been 5 players that are within 500 MMR of each other. Or at least have the mutual respect of, like, maybe they don't play ranked, let's say. Like, for a while when I wasn't playing ranked, like, I remember I stagnated at 4,200 for a while, and I was playing, and like some of my friends were like 48, 49, whatever, but they just knew like I was a good player, I just didn't play ranked, and then that's fine, that's productive. Similarly, like there are plenty of people like that I know that like our friend Scrunk, he's like gone on losing streaks, and he'll be like, I don't even know, like let's say he's 4,500. That doesn't mean he's worse at Dota. That just means he's on a losing streak. And so I still respect him as a player and like respect his opinion just as much as my own, and on some topics way more than my own. So it's much more productive to be on a team that is like similar MMR, rather than, if using my example, if it was 4 of us that are around 5K and then we had one like 9K pro player, sure, we'd learn things from him, but it's not going to be as productive as of a team dynamic if one guy is just telling us all the things we're doing wrong all the time. So yeah. That's my brief thing, because I think a lot of people get ringers, and it might be productive for like 3 practices, but at a certain point, it's not productive. It's just not. Like, people are distracted by their own game, and it's just how it works. So you can't count on one ringer to just be fixing all your problems all the time. It's good to have that ringer like look at your games as a group, but it's not good for that ringer to be on the team. Like I used to coach this guy in his team. And I would sit in and I would watch a replay with all 5 members of that team. And I would say, all right, this went wrong. They would all ask me questions, and it was very productive. But if I was just on that team and I was saying things, it would not be nearly as productive as that.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's that. Let's see. I'm not going to do any more questions because we've gone way long.
I was going to say.
Do you have any closing topics? These things, they just get long.
Yeah. Closing topics. Do you have any
Comments,
homework?
criticisms, concerns?
Do I have any homework? Do I have homework? I was thinking, actually, we haven't set homework in ages.
So you should play with your 5-stack and then tell us what kind of conclusions and stuff you guys come to at the end of like obviously you guys don't have practices because you're just 5-stack, but just to like take a note of what some of the stuff you guys run into is like post game.
Yeah, sure.
Maybe find out what your band hero is. I would like to know that.
Oh yeah,
just out of sick
yeah.
interest.
I will ask. I'll find out for you. I can't remember what it was, but I will ask.
All right, perfect. So this has been Teach Me Tuesday. You can send us questions. We actually need more questions. We've only got a couple left, so pop those in. DM them to any of us on Twitter or on Discord, preferably Discord, just for ease of access. Or you can email them to us, show@fourthspirit.com. Can also find us on all your podcast apps and whatnot. Tell a friend if you haven't. That's the best way to support us. The other best way to support us is on Patreon, patreon.com/Defense of the Patience. We are nearing our 550 goal. I think we're very close to it. So in the month of December, Brad and I are going to be doing our Dark Souls thing. I do believe, unless we start hemorrhaging donations, which would be surprising. Not. So yeah, look forward to that. Also, we have all the Patreon exclusive episodes. If you want one more show a week, we do hero exclusive shows every other Monday, and then every Monday that isn't a hero exclusive, we do casual shows. which is just us. This week it was just us talking about Lost.
Yeah, I was
And
going to
also
say we
Dota,
were Lost
but
podcast.
a lot of Lost. None of us watched
Without
Lost.
watching it,
Well,
yeah.
you watched some.
Yeah,
We just talked
I
about
watched
Lost
some.
for a
It
while.
was a while ago though. But yeah, 3 people
It's very
talking about
fun.
Lost where we don't really know anything about Lost.
Yeah, I was literally on the wiki as I was talking on mic and recording. It was interesting. So yeah, if you like those casual shows, find those on Patreon. You can get them for as little as $1. Yeah. So Twitter at Arsenity, at AUpBeedub, at Fourth Spirit, YouTube.com/Fourth Spirit. I made a Reddit. It's r/Fourth Spirit.
And there's
I still need to set that up.
a Steam group as well.
Oh, there is. That's good. Steam group. You could look that up. Fourth Spirit, I assume. It would be weird if it wasn't named Fourth Spirit.
Yeah, could you imagine if it was named something random?
Yeah. So yeah, that's that. So thanks for listening, everybody. And hopefully we'll all learn something about each other, about ourselves, about how to be mean to our teammates. And I don't know, maybe other things too. Goodbye.